there. I'm Stephanie Cochran, the Executive Director for the Green Shoe Foundation, and you are with Green Shoe Conversations. I am super excited today. I have got two of amazing colleagues that I work with. I've got Mr. Dustin Huckabe, and I've got Mr. Charles Gosset joining us. Hey, guys, how are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Doing good.
Good. So, Dustin, you are from Stages of Recovery here in Oklahoma City, but also throughout Texas. I'll kind of let you talk about that. But Charles, you are here, Oklahoma City, with Full Integrations Coaching. And so, Charles, I'm going to have you start. Why don't you kind of tell us a little about you and who you are?
Okay, yeah, thanks. Like Dustin said, we're really grateful to be on the show and excited to share this conversation together with you and your listeners. So yeah, my name is Charles Gosset, and I'm two things. I'm a life purpose coach and an addiction recovery coach. So I'm certified or credentialed in both of those. And I started coaching about 8 years ago and really started looking for my niche or niche, depending on what part of the country you're in, part of the world you're living in, and really zeroed in about the past 4 or 5 years around purpose and meaning. It's kind of how I'm wired. I'm wired for meaning and purpose and to help others find theirs. So it made a lot of sense. And then I added addiction recovery coaching over the last really year and a half, 2 years with COVID. And I sort of, not so tongue in cheek, say that the tipping point for me to throw my hat in the ring with recovery coaching was finding out that there was a shortage of aluminum cans for all of the alcoholic beverages that were being consumed. Now, there were many factors that included like supply shortages and people not going to restaurants as much, et cetera. But I really had a compassionate response to that and decided to add that to my practice. And also, I'm a person in long-term recovery from alcoholism. This February marked 16 years for me. And my short story is I'm a lot better off without alcohol, and life's a lot better this way. So briefly, what I do is I work one-on-one and sometimes in groups, definitely workshops, retreats, and lots of talks around topics such as purpose, meaning, values, prioritizing, self, identity. These are topics that really, really speak to me. And of course, self-care and authenticity, which I know Green Shoe is big into also, and you are too, Stephanie. Yeah, so I love that. Where I come from as a coach, last piece for me, it's different than therapy or counseling, and that I'm non-clinical. I am not, there's not a regulatory agency with oversight of coaching currently. And so I do not treat or diagnose any kind of mental health condition or substance use disorder of any kind, and I don't treat those directly. So it's really a strengths-based process that uses a lot of motivational interviewing, insight, reflective inquiry, and these things to help people move forward with their lives.
Awesome. Thank you, Charles. All right, Dustin, you're up.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on here. So my name is Dustin Huckabe. I am a person in long-term recovery. So what that means for me is that I haven't used any mind-altering substances since May 26th of 2011. So I'm coming up on 11 years here. I currently work for Stages of Recovery. We have multiple locations, one location in Lubbock, Texas, Waco, and Oklahoma City. I am a licensed master level social worker. I also have I'm a certified clinical trauma specialist as well. And so I try to help individuals navigate the recovery world and their journey to authenticity. I'm not a big believer in potential. I'm more of a believer in self-actualization. So that the difference is finding out who and what you are, and the byproduct of that would be that potential, right? I think it's kind of reversed there. So yeah, we have a facility down in Lubbock, Texas. It's a 36-bed apartment complex for men ages 18 to 60 years old. The average age there is 25. We also have a women's facility. It's a 6-bedroom house that sits on a golf course. It's a really pretty home. And it's a 15-week PHP IOP program for both parties. We also have a facility down in Waco that's for men only, and it's an 18-bed facility but it's also a 15-week PHP IOP program. And then we also have an intensive outpatient 10-week program here at Oklahoma City that meets every Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 6 to 9. So sometimes I'll help lead groups. I'll see individuals from time to time. But we do have a full-time licensed professional counselor here on staff with us. We have a psychiatric nurse practitioner that overlooks our facilities in Lubbock and Waco to help with medication management. We have 24-hour house managers and a leadership team mentor that helps with jobs and resumes and those sorts of things, because we definitely believe that getting a job and saving money and paying your own way, kind of contributing to your own self is not only huge for the families that have been paying for everything, right, but it also for your self-esteem and building that up and knowing that you're capable and worthy of doing that. And so yeah, that's what we do. That's who I am.
Yeah, awesome. And I know we worked with you guys, Green Shoe, and I know you guys and through this, and Charles, you even said this, how there's a lot of things that we kind of all have very similar thoughts about. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's kind of why we've gotten together to have a conversation. And Dustin, I think I told you this, I don't like just to say mental health awareness needs to be 1 month. It needs to be every month.
Absolutely.
And I really wanted to kind of talk about why and the importance of this, because there is a difference between mental health and mental illness. And so when we're talking about mental health, this is something that pertains to everyone. But I kind of want to know from you guys, kind of what does mental health mean to you, either in the work that you do or, personally, what is that for you?
Yeah. So I think for me, I heard you say this when we were on a panel a couple of months ago, the difference between mental illness and mental health. And the first word that comes to my mind is stigma, right? First word that comes to my mind is stigma, because I think that we're more in a society that is willing to acknowledge now, we've come a long way to acknowledge the mental health, right? It's kind of a tagline, and it's kind of a sexy topic. Mm-hmm. But when I say the words mental illness, right, as a potential brain disease, something that's outside the control of someone, we kind of shun and hold ourselves back from talking about it, which perpetuates stigma and shame, right? And can be a barrier from getting people help. So I think it's always important to have a month in particular that highlights those things. But I'm with you. I think that it should be year long. It should be something that's constantly talked about, because everyone's constantly dealing with it. Somebody who doesn't have mental health issues or mental illness issues for 1 month, they're sometimes lifelong. And the more that we could talk about those and share our experiences with them and shed light on them and provide space for those individuals, hopefully the more that they can have accessibility to getting help that they need.
Yeah. When you said that, I thought, yeah, it is kind of cooler to talk about your self-care or mental health, or let me show you my new yoga class I'm taking, or whatever that is, versus to really talk about mental illness. And struggles that I've personally struggled with, and family members and people that I know. Yeah,
I agree.
What are your thoughts, Charles?
Yeah, no, I would echo the stigma piece is hugely important. Also for me, between the words, but for me, I also talk about spectrum. A spectrum's a lot. And between mental health and mental illness, there's a spectrum, meaning if we're going to use those words to discuss or label how we're doing mentally, emotionally, socially, and our behaviors as a result also, then those two things can be seen on an extreme or two ends of a spectrum. And so for me personally and professionally with those I work with, I always ask what language people want to use, but mental health is something that we all understand and that we all have or don't have. So for me personally, then when I lose my mental health, or when I'm struggling with my mental health, I may or may not have a mental illness, which typically means a diagnosis, or a suspected diagnosis, such as, anxiety disorder or depressive disorder or something like this, which I have both of those, and I have my entire life since I was about 10. So anxiety has been crippling to me over portions of my life, which sometimes then comes with depression. And then that feels terrible. And I wanted it to end, especially, when I was younger in my teens, and I found alcohol and substances really did a very effective job at making me feel differently, that those symptoms were reduced temporarily. So a lot of folks wonder, why do people keep using? Why do they keep drinking? Why do they keep doing those behaviors, the compulsive behaviors? Well, initially it's because it feels good. It feels really good. So, but back to your point, over a while, that becomes an illness or disorder too, substance use disorder for me. So I think that both terms belong, but I use mental health challenges more often than mental illness. But yeah, those are some points.
Yeah, no, I talk a lot about struggles, mental health struggles and different things, and everybody has that. And it makes me wonder too, people don't like labels, even when you use diagnostic words, bipolar, things like that. And so that, do you guys think those labels keep the stigma, and make people, for whatever reason, feel shame and not want to talk about it?
Yeah, it's a really great question. My first initial thought, which sometimes isn't always the best thought, but my first initial thought with it, so I've been struggling with substance use disorder since I was 13, in and out of institutions pretty much from 13 to 23. And I would be given labels all of the time. I am this, I am that, I'm diagnosed with this and that, right? And it becomes your identity, right? And it can be crippling. I think what's more crippling isn't necessarily the label for me, but it was the fact that people were writing me off because of the label, right? Like people were not saying you were not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z because you are diagnosed with X, Y, and Z. And I think for me, once I got into recovery, I started to take ownerships of those labels, right? I started to take that power back, so to speak, and be able to own it, right? And know that, okay, yes, if I have this label, right, then what can I do about it? Where can I seek help? What resources can I have? And who else has this label? And do they want to talk? Do they want to get together? Do they want to do those things? And what has happened over the years is that I have grown a community around me of individuals that have embraced that label. So I think initially it can be a barrier to some, but I think it's only a barrier because society says it's a barrier, right? And I push back against that all the time, and so. I think it really just kind of depends on where you're at in your kind of your emotional or spiritual journey with that. But I definitely think society as a large, it definitely can be a barrier. But I would say that there are pockets of communities of individuals that maybe wear those labels with a badge of honor and pride.
Yeah. And I know we need those diagnoses sometimes for insurance and different things, and they can actually give you resources. And that's probably a whole nother conversation, with that. But I always want to know what's behind the diagnosis. Because we'll, have people give us a call and they're like, let me list off everything. I feel like we just list off the whole alphabet, that they've been diagnosed with, when really we may just be talking about their childhood trauma, So again, I think it's important to look beyond the diagnosis and really what are they personally struggling with, and they're not just the label.
Yeah, I would agree. I just real quickly, I'm sure Charles has some thoughts on this too, but you're right. Like there are things that are happening at a deeper level, right? Because the behavior is always the byproduct of what has happened. Right. So the question is, what's wrong with you? The question that people should be saying is, what happened to you? right? And once we find out what happened to you, healing from that point can begin, because now we have a starting point, right? It's not this arbitrary place. It's now we have a pinpointed place of this is what happened. So now we can work through that. So a lot of our clients, and I don't see clients as often as I have, being the director of operations here, so more of in the community and things like that. But what I tell everybody who walks in this door, because all of the clients I sit down and talk with them, is it's like we're like an onion, right? And if you had an onion and you cut it, what's going to happen, right? You're going to cry, right? So you're an onion, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to peel back layers of that onion, right? And it's going to be a little painful and uncomfortable, right? But we're going to start getting used to being comfortable, being uncomfortable for a period of time, right? And we're going to get down to those causes and conditions of who and what we really are, right? And then once we get down to that, then we can start growing and reaching that self-actualization. And the byproduct of that is potential and ownership and accountability and trust and hope and all of those things. But
yeah. Charles, what other barriers do you see with mental health, mental illness, the stigma?
Yeah, I know for me, again, for my personal journey, then extending out, I should say also professionally, like ethically, as a coach, this all comes into conversations that I have with clients also, but in a non-therapeutic sense, meaning I don't dig so much towards those initial factors, those what's going on and what happened to you, although it does come up conversationally. So we're really working together with the strengths of the individual. If they need additional support, like if they're stuck on their goals, that's usually a good indicator. If they're saying, God, I've been so depressed, I just can't get out of bed. Really, coaching is designed to handle that, to treat that. And coaching can help them find those additional resources. But some of the barriers, gosh, there's so many. I really love, if I'm going to try to remember this, Dustin, the distinction you made. Let me see if this is right. It's not the label, it's how society interprets that label that seems to be an issue. And so speaking of going beneath the layers, I couldn't agree more. I don't know that I've heard you say that before, but I agree 100% with that. I don't think labels are bad on a personal or professional level, but it doesn't need to be my whole identity, and it doesn't need to be anybody else's whole identity. And a case in point is that I can remember working the 12 steps and doing some other activities that helped me to recover from alcoholism. And I was working with the therapist also. And one day through spiritual practices and the result of some actions I've been taking to get right with the world and try to do the right thing without substances and bad behaviors and harmful behaviors, is this realization came in my head. And it was like, it's something to the effect that, well, I am alcoholic. I have this thing, this alcoholism, but I'm not an alcoholic. And for me, that subtle distinction, it was just like mind blowing. I thought, so I started changing the way I introduced myself in 12 steps meeting. I just said, I am alcoholic. I'm Charles. I am alcoholic. Instead of and, because that identity was too small for me. That had been shattered. It doesn't mean now if I go start drinking, guess what? I'm going to be an alcoholic again. So for me, some of the many barriers are just how we self-perceive and how we are perceived by others. And honestly, conversations like this, I'm just going to say to the audience, if you have anxiety or depression or substance use or personality or any other variety of other challenges in your life, you're not alone. It's not weird. And it deserves to have an honest, healthy, supportive conversation.
Right. And Dustin, you made the point. Sometimes it's just by just reaching out and finding out who else. And I guarantee you there's somebody else in your circle that has similar struggles. I struggle with, I run into high anxiety all the time. And I've struggled with that my whole life. And some of that just comes from, my perfectionism. I have to be perfect. I can't make mistakes. And if I make mistakes, my whole world collapses, and granted, that's something I have learned, that mistakes are actually a gift, and learned how to give myself grace in that. And that's helped that anxiety come down. But it's, Charles, I love how you said it's really, I think, more too about how we perceive our labels first and foremost, because that's all that matters, is how we see ourselves. And then we're telling other people how to see us, and so, I really, really like that. You brought something up in your intro talking about with COVID. I mean, and we can't ignore what we've been through the last 2 years, and kind of what's coming out of COVID. It's almost like it's the pandemic that nobody's talking about, the mental health issues and the different things that people, have seen. And I don't know what you're seeing, in your coaching practice and different things, but people are, really struggling with not just the mental illness, but they're getting back into their mental health practices, and all of that. The loss of connection, for a lot of people, was really hard. The ability to be able to have any alcohol delivered to your house too during that. I mean, there was a lot of things that happened that it's fascinating. You talked about the aluminum cans, but anybody, I could have whatever I wanted delivered to my house and just stay home and nobody would know.
That's right. And there's a lot there to unpack that you mentioned. And so I'll be brief so we can shift back over and get Dustin's thoughts too. But yeah, for me, that was a motivator, the cans analogy, but there was many other factors involved. I saw the rising rates of alcohol consumption, and maybe especially in women, which was concerning for me. And I thought, I'm big into women's empowerment. I have an empowered wife and 2 empowered daughters and an empowered sister. I'm all about it. Many female clients are women clients that may identify as otherwise, but absolutely. And so that was hurtful. So it was really like this compassionate response that, hey, I can do a little bit more. I cannot save the world. I already know that, but there's some that I can do to reach out and maybe make a little bit of a difference and just be a voice. So, that COVID really, with my clientele that I've seen, my practice has grown. Mm-hmm. And really, I'm seeing people from Oklahoma, but really a lot of folks from out east seem to be finding me, from Florida and Pennsylvania and Virginia and other states. And mental health comes up, and they know that conversation is welcome. So speaking to all the coaches out there for a minute, if you're listening in, it's important that we stay in our lanes, that we don't treat or diagnose. It's also important that we have the conversation that client needs to have in that space that's supportive. You can always be supportive, even if you're not a coach or a therapist. Mm-hmm. If you're someone just listening in, you can always be a safe place for somebody to have a conversation so they can get it out. We need that more than ever. And so a lot of what I'm seeing from clientele is just from folks I serve, is there'll be a few minutes, hey, it's been a really hard week. I got some stuff done, but some I didn't. And so we talk about it. Yeah. And so they may need to see a therapist, and that'll be a coaching. Hey, do you think you need maybe a little bit more support, a little bit more professional care right now? Yeah, I think maybe I'm going to go see my therapist again. Okay. We can pause coaching or continue, but we really want people to have that access to the care that they need, whether it's on the street or in conversations like this.
Right. And I think all three of us have mentioned we just have to have a conversation. So maybe, if that's the one thing people take away from this conversation, is to not stray away from a hard topic, or asking for help, or just if you're with a friend, just hey, what are you doing these days to take care of yourself? And I just don't mean physically, because be clear, if we all needed surgery, we'd go have it. Right. But sometimes if we need to go do a check-in on our mental health, whether it's with our therapist, or we need to make sure we're taking that personal time, both spiritually, physically, emotionally, we've got to make sure we do that. There's also a stigma within the stigma. And Dustin brought this up to me last week with, it's not just about mental health, but when we start talking about men's mental health, there's even a different type of stigma. And, I'm going to take advantage of having you guys on this with me and kind of ask you, again, even talking more about men's mental health. And, we'll get into June, by the way, as Men's Mental Health Awareness. But again, I try not to be just about a month, but what are your thoughts on the stigma related to that particularly?
Yeah, so I want to go back just a second and talk about the effects of COVID. It was a pandemic that we had never seen, and what I saw was kind of an uptick in recovery meetings jumping on Zoom and providing that outlet to folks. And we had an uptick in 12-step recovery meetings because of that. So a lot of people were able to find a solution for themselves that worked in that community that worked during COVID. And there's been an uptick in a lot of 12-step communities where Zoom was so helpful for those individuals that otherwise couldn't leave their homes. But I would say that the meetings have gotten bigger, definitely because of COVID. As far as the men's mental health, I feel two ways about it. One, I feel that there's more accessibility for men. I feel that way. But I also feel this, what we had talked about last week was this John Wayne syndrome. And this John Wayne syndrome, as I've kind of dubbed it as that name, is, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. You fall off the horse, it doesn't matter. You don't need to talk about your feelings, your emotions, or how hard it hurt, or any of that. You just need to get back up and you need to keep going, right? And wipe it off and just trudge the road. And I really distaste that attitude because it doesn't allow for vulnerability to happen. It doesn't allow for growth to happen, right? What it's saying is that your feelings and your emotions don't matter.
Yeah.
And they do matter, right? And there's a lot of people that care, right? And so this whole John Wayne syndrome in America is, it was built, in a way of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you know what I mean? And you just kind of keep going and doing what you're doing. And I just think that it prevents a lot of people, men specifically, in talking about their emotions. So if I've got somebody on my couch here and we're talking about some trauma stuff that's come up, sometimes it's really difficult to get past those barriers because his culture was to not talk about that, right? So
Right.
So now we're having to dig even deeper of like, okay, well, what happened here and why was it like this for you there? How did it make you feel here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of having to like use a pickaxe to chip away these levels of trauma, right?
Okay.
So that I feel comfortable and I feel safe in order to talk about it. And then once that happens, once you kind of chip away at enough, the tears come and the healing starts to happen. And then you find out that, you know what, it is okay to talk about how you feel. It is okay to be frustrated. It is okay to not like certain things. It's okay. It's okay. Wherever you're at is okay, and it's really difficult, I think, for men to talk about,
Yeah.
because it's societal norms.
Right. I think I have seen my dad cry once, at his father's funeral, and that's it. I could have told you when he was happy, but I could not have told you if he was ever angry or sad, because those weren't emotions that were okay for him to show.
Yeah, and no, healing can't come from that.
Yeah.
And not only healing, but think about when you're a child and you're growing up in that environment. That's what you're told, right? You're shown that,
Right.
and so then how do you process that when you have children and they want to express their emotions and their needs and their wants and all of that, and you don't have the mental capacity or the emotional ability to do that?
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really important that we have these conversations again, and that we open these spaces for people to know that it is okay, to talk about vulnerability. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about shame. It's okay to find healing in that. Because here's the thing: you're going to be a better father, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be a better mother. You're going to be a better son or brother. You're going to be a better community member because you have found your authentic self.
Right. Right. And just
just
be happy, and have you ever thought about be happy because you can be angry? There's no labels on good feelings or bad feelings. It's all a part of it. And you get to feel that,
Right.
like that.
Maybe for the first time ever,
Yeah. And express it, And the thing is, I think we feel it, but we were taught to stuff it down, or choke it back, that kind of thing. What are your thoughts, Charles?
Yeah, no, similar to what Dustin shared, and you, Stephanie, also. Yeah, the thing that I like to tell men, especially, is that, like Dustin said, it's okay to feel, and guess what? You already are.
Yeah,
you're already experiencing emotions. Now, how you express them and what you do with them is another story. And I relate. I grew up playing sports and sort of this southern Midwestern part of the world, of the United States, and in Oklahoma, where typically, fourth generation Okie on one side of my family, where, life is hard and you deal with it. And if you're a guy, you can get mad, you can get frustrated, and you can get sad about certain things. If a loved one dies, or not if you're hurt,
right.
Let's not cry then, stop crying, but
no
I had different,
yeah.
There's no crying in baseball, right? Yeah. And I grew up playing baseball. So now I didn't experience that as much with my family. There was kind of these competing norms in my family, and I love my family dearly. But, in my generation, some of it's generational too. Wartime, World War II, World War I, people shut down their emotions because it was hard going, and people were self-preservation. Yeah. They were getting united as a country and all those things. And it was just a different context. In our times, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, they're going to be hopefully wanting to express their feelings.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can shut them down, or you can stuff them, or you can change those feelings into something, you can mask them into something else, but they're still going to want to find a way to be acknowledged honestly. And that's the authenticity piece that I connected with Dustin, is that, let it be what it is. And if you don't know how your feelings, what they are, I had to learn mine. I had to learn so many emotions, in recovery, because I'd been shutting them up. And it's been the journey of a lifetime. I was missing half of my life. Guys listening in, you're missing your life. I know there's, depending on cultural norms, in the Black and African-American population, it can be considered soft to express almost any emotion. And it's not, it's not, but you have to be in a safe place to be able to do that.
Sure.
There's some contexts where absolutely it's not safe, but find people that understand, what you're hearing now, and that can have this conversation with you, so you can get at least some of them out and understand what your emotions are.
Yeah, I think part of that is that, when you look at the African-American and Black communities, the turmoil that they've dealt with since the conception of the United States, and talking about emotions, talking about feelings, you didn't have a safe place, right? Yeah. And you can argue that today those safe places are far few and in between. And we're all white here, and so I feel privileged. I feel the ability. I've had a background in all of those things, but I have the space to talk about it, and I think it's important to bring that up and to know that there are certain sects of our community that may not have the ability that we have so freely today, Sure. But and it's generational trauma, right? It's societal, it's all of these things, and the more and more I think that just as human beings talk about these safe places, hopefully, my children and my children's children will start to have safer places and more inclusive and diverse places to share in a dialogue of hope and authenticity and community. You know, that's what I really hope for.
And our responsibility in creating those environments, that are diverse, inclusive, where it is safe to share emotions. Because I think kind of what you were talking about, Charles, is through those emotions and authenticity is how we connect with people. We can have a greater connection with loved ones and family, by doing that. But you're right, Dustin, there is a safety component to all of that. There's a great book by Terrence Real, and I don't know if you have read it. If not, I'll get you one. So I've got some on my shelf, called "I Don't Want to Talk About It," and it's about men's emotional journey, and how society told them not to have feelings or not to show feelings. And, when things come up, it's, I'm going to shut down, close off. So, and it's a really great book that takes that male approach on how, we open up those emotions. So, and I encourage women to read it, too, because again, there is, I have a responsibility to know how to listen, and know how to be a safe person for my husband and my two adult boys. I've got one that's just now 18 and a 22-year-old, and so there, I have that responsibility, for them to know that I'm a safe person for that.
Yeah, I agree. I would also like
absolutely.
to say too, part of just kind of this topic is having safe environments for parents who are going through the struggles with the individual who's suffering from substance use disorder or any mental health or illness issue, to be able to also have that safe place. My mother went through it with me, and she didn't have those resources. She didn't have those connections that I think that are there today. And I think it's important that if a parent is listening to us, thanks for listening all the way to this point. But
we've kind of gone on.
Yeah, but thank you so much, and for listening, and also that there are communities out there for you too, and that you're not alone as a parent, and that if somebody has a substance use disorder or a mental health issue, it's not your fault. You're not to blame for it. And but we are responsible for how we show up, and we are responsible for our words and our actions and our behaviors. And there are communities in which they're in Oklahoma that can help you with that. So I just wanted to do a little shout out to parents.
Yeah. And the Parents Helping Parents community, I know you both
Absolutely.
are very involved in that. Is such an amazing organization that provides that support, because it's okay. You have the right as a parent to get your own support,
right.
And you need that. So I think we're just going to almost have to stop and say this is part one, because there's so much more to talk about. And I do want to have you guys back, because again, this is such an important topic that I don't think we just kind of say, oh, we're done, with that. And we're not. Hopefully what we've done is started the conversation for anybody, because if you hear anything today, it's have the conversation. Talk about how you're doing, and check in on your loved ones, your circle of friends, people, and ask them how they're doing. We can talk about mental health and mental illness without it being a bad label or anything attached to it. So final thoughts, Charles?
Yeah, I would just add, and learn about it, learn about it, have the conversation, but also get informed. And I know during COVID, I have two daughters. We have two daughters, and one is 19 and had her first year at college and is back for the summer. We're so excited. And our other, they are a junior in high school, and they love their art and dance and all the creativity. And, without going into detail, our family has had struggles over the past year or two. It's been hard. So I really resonate with the words that Dustin was sharing, and Stephanie, what you shared about family and children. Absolutely. I had to learn a lot over the last year that I don't talk about with everyone, but I talk about with other parents and in certain contexts about how to feel difficult things, difficult conversations, and how to, not fix or fear, but also, hold space and be supportive and watchful at the same time. And didn't do it perfectly as a fellow perfectionist in recovery from that.
Right.
But did it good enough. So I'd say don't have to do it perfectly. Give it a try, have the conversation, and also learn. And then, of course, if anybody wants to reach out to me, again, Charles Gosset, fullintegrationcoaching.com. Be glad to talk further and have other conversations.
Yeah, I think some closing remarks from myself. I think kind of just sums it up by a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. is that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And I think that our mission here at Stages of Recovery is to show love and support. And and that's our mission, right? As an advocate, I'm an advocate. I'm a husband. I'm a person in recovery. I'm an operations guy. I'm a licensed. I'll wear all of these hats, right?
Yeah.
All of these labels. But I think it's important that the values and the integrity always stay intact, and that's to provide a safe place for anybody who needs it, and to show love for those individuals that are struggling or suffering from substance use disorder or mental health issues. And so, if you anybody ever needs any information about Lubbock, Waco, or our Oklahoma IOP, just give me a shout.
Yeah. Our amazing Amanda will also have y'all's information posted at the end of this video and recording and all of that too, so people can get a hold of you. Am I correct that both your spouses are in the education field?
They are.
Yes, because I definitely want to give a shout out to them because they have been our warriors the last 2 years. You know, our teachers, our school counselors, our administrators, you know, they really have the hearts of angels and are holding those students' mental health in their hands and have been the biggest advocates. So yeah, we'll give them a shout out as well. There is some really cool stuff happening this month too. So this is airing Friday morning. So if you're listening to it today, know that tonight you have to go to the sober dance party. Charles talked about this. Because I mean, there's anything better for your mental health than music and dance. It just is.
Right. And even if you can't dance, right, it's like me, I don't claim to be able to dance, but I know how to have fun. And that's what really matters. So this is a community recovery event that Dustin is really, I've been in great conversation partner and idea person with for this. And by the way, I'm just down the hall in Stages of Recovery. I share office space. So thanks to Dustin for that too.
Charles has the biggest office in the whole building, you know.
I really do. And if you're watching, so it's really nice if this is going video. So it's really nice. I love it. So yeah, absolutely. So this Friday from 6 to 10:30 p.m. at a place called 36 Square in Bethany. So that's at Northwest 36th and College Avenue, just a few blocks away from SNU, Southern Nazarene, and what's the Bethany First Church of the Nazarene, just down the street. Mentality and Coffee, 36 Square, and Full Integration Coaching are co-hosting the very first sober-friendly dance party that night. It's just $10 to get in. And if you don't have it, we'll let you in anyway. Just trying to offset some costs on that, not trying to make a bunch of money. We're going to have Psycho Taco food truck out. Really pumped about that. DJ Mayhem. Big shout out again to Dustin for that connection. Really excited to have him out. We're going to have lawn games, giveaways from Country Road Recovery is helping to offset some costs in sponsoring the event. Thanks so much for that, Drew. Kiera Morris and Stonegate Center in Texas is doing some giveaways and some cool stuff like that. So very thankful for them. And then Green Shoe Foundation is also bringing some glow in the dark bling. Yeah, so get your green on. We're going to have a great time. So come out and see us.
Yeah, such an awesome event. And then Saturday, May 21st, we've got NAMI Walk down at the Myriad Gardens. So we'll all be there. We've got tons of booths and different things, but they are sponsoring the walk. Also, there is going to be yoga classes, face painting. Check out our last podcast. I had Kieran and Lorna from the NAMI Oklahoma on, and they talked about all the events. And again, it is a fundraiser to help support NAMI, who does so much for our mental health community directly. All funds stay in Oklahoma and absolutely help support all of us. Also, Dustin, fentanyl awareness.
Yep, that's happening 19th. On the 19th. Yep, out in Shawnee. So we're gonna continue to talk about fentanyl awareness. Too many overdoses are happening in our state. So we're going to have a panel discussion there and continue to bring awareness and hope for those individuals that have suffered a loss, and to bring awareness of the effects that fentanyl is having on our country right now. So that's going to be at the 19th out in Shawnee. And let me see here. That the address for that is 1899 South Gordon Cooper Drive out in Shawnee. So 1899 South Gordon Cooper Drive. And that's going to be at 5:30 to 6:30 on the 19th.
Awesome. And again, check your community. There's a lot of stuff that's going on this month. Again, mental health is really, pumped. It's all about wearing the green. And yes, that's why we have the name Green Shoe, by the way. So that kind of fits right into us. Charles, Dustin, thank you so much for being on this with me and sharing all your awesome insights. And you raised a lot more interesting questions too that I think we can kind of continue on later on. So keep the conversation going. If you need to reach us, you can reach us at our website at greenshoe.org. Shoot us an email at info@greenshoe.org, and we will absolutely get back with you. Thanks again, and we will see you later.